The people who tend to fight wars are typically very patriotic, very male people. I mean, I'm sorry to break it to you, but this has been the truth about military warfare for literally all of human history. And the institution of traditional masculinity has been core to that idea. But we're a society that doesn't believe in traditional masculinity. Traditional masculinity is an opponent because traditional masculinity requires roles. It says that men are supposed to protect, men are supposed to defend, men are supposed to be strong, men are supposed to be fathers and husbands. These are apparently very bad things now. You're not supposed to say these things.
That is Ben Shapiro, who is, of course, an expert on masculinity. Now, I know it's popular for leftists to attack him, implying what would he know about masculinity, but I don't even understand what you're talking about. First of all, you heard his deep, bassy voice. Second of all, you saw the little smattering of hairs that he's been growing desperately over the past year on his face. And third of all, the dude shops at Home Depot. Like everyone else, he goes occasionally and he buys a single plank of poplar, as you do when you go to Home Depot. That screams man. The sort of man who can opine on women in the military when he chose to never serve. He didn't do any of this. He didn't go through the training. He didn't risk his life. But he can openly and repeatedly mock the many women who have done that, who went through the training, that served their country for years or decades, those who died on numerous battlefields that he recommended we go to, by the way. He can do that. Certainly, Francesca, he can tell us what we should value when it comes to masculinity in the military. What do you think?
Oh, just trying to grow that puby little beard out. Ugh. I don't know what we're talking about. Like, what's your problem, bro? Just come out and say it, right? Is it that there are women serving? Is it that there are gay people who can openly serve? I guess not anymore, maybe. Like, what are we, what is, and he finally says men. But in terms of masculinity or very male people, like, masculinity is actually quite fluid, right? So let's talk about that, bro. But then he's like, okay, but men. So what is this? And I'm actually like very, this makes me mad. This is not funny to me. It angers the hell out of me because it's always elitist, comfortable Republicans sitting around talking about why there aren't more men in the military, why we're not doing more war, right? Meanwhile, the number of sexual assaults in the military from your masculine men who, yes, litter the United States military has jumped by 25% in the last year. Last year, there were almost 9,000 reported sexual assaults in the year 2021. That's only gone up this year. And those are the ones that are reported. So my guess is your version of masculinity is actually endangering the U.S. military personnel. That's exactly what it's doing here to our own military people and abroad. So I'm just so done. I'm so done with this because they had a woman in the recruitment video, they think that suddenly, or a gay person in the recruitment video, they think masculinity is dead. Man, go fight your little war in your blanket fort with your military men, your little G-men, and just live out the fantasy that way, because we live in reality, and the reality is that masculinity is actually crushing us.
He has no idea what the problem is supposed to be. He just knows that he's supposed to freak out his viewers about masculinity or something. They're supposed to think, okay, the people in the military, not masculine. Guy who squeaks at a camera about masculinity for a few hours a day is masculine. That's what you're supposed to take away. Anyway, I wanted to
wedgie, bro. Like, you think this is really masculine? Come on, we can play this game too.
But like, honestly, like, he doesn't have to compete with every man. He only has to compete with the other clones of him, and he's arguably leading the pack amongst them, I guess. So he's doing okay. Anyway, Vote Vets responded to him saying, "Hey, Ben Shapiro, our women warriors are among our best and bravest. How dare someone who's never served talk like this? It's an obvious point. He'll ignore it." But while I was doing my research on what he has had to say about women in the military, I came across a tweet of his from back in 2000, because he's been squealing about this for literally years. And he started by saying on masculinity, masculinity and femininity exist. Outward indicators of masculinity and femininity exist in nearly every human culture. And he goes on, it doesn't really matter. But I found a great reply to it, and it says this: "And yet your outward indicator would suggest you were a guppy. gestating in the real world, too pale to survive in sunlight, yet too weak to crawl back into the cluster of eggs from whence you came. And do you know who sent that?
Hell yeah, dude.
It's Francesca. I just randomly came across this tweet of his, and one of the first replies was Francesca absolutely owning him. I thought that was hilarious. And literally the only thing that made it better, Francesca, was a guy who replied to you saying, "Wow, sexual harassment for making a baseline truce." Typically an historically accurate statement. And you're the better person.
I didn't sexually harass him. I don't think guppies have gender. I mean, I think they're sexless.
How are you sexually harassing him? What are you talking about? Anyway.
Hell yeah, let me see that guppy body.